Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Copenhagen. Right. So I'm Sam. Nice to meet you. My challenge today is to give you the path of adoption, not just for Polkadot, but the entirety of the Web3 ecosystem in about 15 minutes. So prepare to be disappointed. Right. So when it comes to any sort of adoption, I think categorically you need to give people a why. You need to define a why. You need to give them a reason to use something. Otherwise, they're not going to do it. And this might be a really controversial opinion, but in my opinion, DeFi has kind of failed. And there's a variety of reasons why it failed. And there's many reasons, but really it comes down to regulation, right? Governments don't want you to use your magic internet money to pay for things you need, right? Like your mortgages, your cars. We're in Copenhagen, so bikes, right? So, and that's an understanding problem. But for us to move beyond that, for us to solve the why for people, we need to genuinely convince them that this is something that they can use, this is something that they need, or this is something that they want. And in my opinion, we haven't been able to, which is surprising because the most important thing a blockchain gives you, the most important thing it gives you is trust. Like, you don't need a middle layer or someone in the middle to let you know that something has happened. The transparency and the visibility of the blockchain gives you that for free. So countries where trust is at a premium, you would think that's where DeFi would grow. And we've seen it. We've seen some form of adoption in places like Latin America, in El Salvador, Argentina. We've had some really interesting discussions today around how DeFi helps there. But the underlying thing is, since 2018, 2019, I think we've failed to do that. And to answer the whys to lead to adoption, I've kind of split this presentation into 4 whys. And that's one. First, we need to understand why we're failing and why we're struggling. And once we acknowledge that, we need to figure out how and where do we go. So the next thing we need to answer is, why Polkadot? And you guys have heard a lot of presentations today talk about how Polkadot's amazing and the tech's fantastic and how it's miles better than the competition. And while that's true, it's not why we chose Polkadot and Imbue. The one constant that you have when you're building anything, or in software in general, is change. That's the one thing that will always happen. Whenever you're building anything, you think you have such a great idea, you build it, and you realize then your users aren't using it the way you thought they would. You learn more about behavior. And the data reflects that. When you look at when Bitcoin first came out, it was a really good idea. Then people started using it, and they realized, this doesn't suit our needs, we need to change. And then changing is hard, so they forked, and they got Bitcoin Cash. And then they used it for a bit, and then they realized, it doesn't fit our needs either. And then they forked again into Bitcoin Cash ABC and SV. So change is constant. And when you look across the ecosystems, some ecosystems changes harder than others. And especially in Web3, one of the biggest criticisms of engineers that I've worked with, I've been building software for about 15 years now, working with distributed systems, and there are some really valid criticisms around Web3, because these smart contracts that are being deployed, they're scripts. They're essentially scripts. I do A, B, and C, and then I get X, Y, Z. And then when you deploy these scripts and you're setting them in stone, that's a big mistake. Because someone can come in and realize, hang on, you didn't think about certain scenarios. So I'm going to do A, C, and B instead of A, B, and C, which means now I can print magic money, and I've hacked the blockchain, right? What Polkadot gives us, and what it's unique, is confidence. The core customer of Polkadot are builders. And what we have that no other ecosystem has is well-defined best practices that have served the IT industry for 10, 15 years. I'm talking about tests, immutable infrastructure, dashboards, alerting. That just doesn't exist in other ecosystems. And I get people who come to me and say, what's the point of Kusama? Kusama gives people that confidence because, yes, we have amazing devs, but other ecosystems also have amazing devs. But what we have that they don't is all these different environments. We've got all the parachain teams have dev environments and staging environments, but the infrastructure itself, we've got Rococo, we've got Western, we've got Kusama, and we've got Polkadot. So when Gav is talking about unstoppable, from a tech perspective, it's unstoppable because all the issues that could happen have happened way earlier in the pipeline. So by the time it reaches Polkadot, you're so much more confident that this thing won't break. So, why Imbue? Imbue at its core is milestone-based democracy. When we first wanted to build Imbue, which is essentially a decentralized freelance marketplace as it is now today, we wanted to give people options. We wanted to give people optionality. We wanted to give the people value. You've got tremendous amounts of talent that lives in Southeast Asia, Latin America, in Africa. And what we have to recognize is the lottery. And it's a lottery. You don't decide where you're born. The lottery of where you're born or the citizenship you hold determines your opportunities to succeed. Now, I'm not saying as someone who lives in Africa is going to fail, but they're going to have a much harder time at succeeding than someone who lives here, or in the West, or in the States. And that's just a fact. The global financial system discriminates against you based on where you're from. Web3 is a solution for that. And our goal is to give them that why, to give them that reason. So the way Imbue works is someone comes in and says, look, I want something done. I need, it could be anything. It doesn't even have to be Web3 related. I want a blog post written. I want some content made. I want a website designed. I want to mint an NFT. Doesn't matter. You need something done. And then you get qualified and vetted freelancers. We're building a fellowship where you've got multidiscipline. Right now, similar to the Polkadot fellowship where you're based on your capability to submit PRs to the core repos. We're building multidiscipline fellowships where we're able to look at your work. So you could be a rank 1 in marketing, a rank 2 in content, right? And you grow and you qualify the output. So when someone says, I want something done, and a freelancer comes in and says, look, I can do it for you in milestone 1, milestone 2, milestone 3. When I deliver that first milestone, someone comes and vets that this is actually quality. And that's important because when you're not an expert in that field, you don't know what good looks like. I'm an engineer. I can go ask someone to build me a website. I look at it and it looks fine. But someone who is in the design world, in the UX world, will tell me, hang on, the header and the footer don't match. The font's all over the place. This is garbage. So we need that vetting. We need that quality to ensure that what you're getting is of real value. And by giving people access to monetize their skill sets, we clearly answer the why to use Web3. It's important to move away from people who came in early. In DeFi, and this is a criticism that not a lot of people share, but it's a fact. If you're lucky enough, and it's pure luck, if you're lucky enough to come in early and, or be in the right place when you hear about it, then you're one of the very few people who are well, and you've got a lot of people who are not as well off. What's important to go towards adoption is it needs to be a win-win for both sides. The client coming in who wants something done securely and done well, and the freelancers who actually want something to do and are able to earn a living, are able to lead a better life. Give them optionality, become value adders. And what's important is the freelance marketplace is just what we've built. What it enables us to do is ensure accountability empowered by the blockchain. So you look at across the ecosystem, and we've had these discussions before, where the social media platforms are like echo chambers. And when you have a real issue across an ecosystem or a protocol and you raise it, when you're emotionally invested on this ecosystem, any form of criticism seems like an attack. So you're not even willing to listen. So you come up and look what happened with Terra Luna, and you're like, hang on, some people raised this, and they were immediately shut down. What you need is to give people a platform where they can look at the protocol or look at a solution and highlight where some issues live, and maybe even invite the team. What I'm calling is an integrity tower. But we need a platform where we can pay them securely for their time. So people coming into the Web3 ecosystem are not relying on influencers who are going to tell them, this is the next moonshot, this is the next 10x. You need to read a place, you need to find a place where you can read around risks, highlight the issues in an unbiased and peer-reviewed way. So we hopefully build a better platform. What I wanted to do was, instead of talking about make Web3 work, I wanted it to be make Web3 work for you, give you reasons to use this platform. And that's what we're building with Imbue, multiple primitives to actually make you use it. For the sake of time, I really wanted to do a demo, but there's no time for it. But I can give you one other thing that we've built that we wanted to present, but for the sake of time, we can't. For those of you who are within the ecosystem, there's some slight tensions on the treasury, on the Kusama treasury and soon on the Polkadot treasury, where there's an issue around lack of accountability. And people are like, we're spending this money and we're not seeing the value coming out. What we've built is a grant system where people can say, hey, we think the ecosystem needs A, B, and C. We're willing to do it, but we're looking at this person who is within the ecosystem that can validate our work, this person, the technical fellowship. They can look at what we've built and validate whether or not this milestone has been met. And in the event that something hasn't been met, the experts, the approvers, we're calling approvers, can say, let's refund that money back to the treasury. So we ensure accountability empowered by the blockchain. That's extremely powerful. That's just one of the many, many use cases we see when you give people a reason, a real reason, to use Web3. That's it for me. I'm happy answering any questions that people have. And yeah, there's just no time to do a demo. But what I would encourage people to do is go to the website. You can get access to the DApp. You can get a reason, see what people are requesting. You can browse for your answers. And soon you could be able to submit briefs to the Kusama treasury. And through the interoperability of Polkadot, this applies to any treasury. You can go to the Cosmos ecosystem and we can start working together. Because that's core to what Polkadot is, working together, not competing. We can go to ETH and say, all these ecosystems have a problem with accountability. We're using the blockchain to ensure that accountability. Thank you.
Maybe say that you. Yeah.
There's a hot mic running around. No questions.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. You mentioned paying the freelancers for their work, right?
Yeah.
Do you do that with something like stablecoins?
Yes. Yeah, so we've got a channel or lane open with Asset Hub. So stable coins come through Asset Hub, they come to the platform, and you're paying. We can utilize any substrate native token, but the goal is the value you're creating, the need. So you can accept stable coins.
Nice, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
I want to ask, in your platform, in which way are clients and freelancers connected?
So again, there was no time for a demo, but you essentially list a brief saying, hey, I want A, B, and C done, and this is my budget. And then freelancers can search through this brief, they can communicate, there's real-time messaging and say, hey, I can do this for you, here are my milestones, right? So it's the freelancers at the moment who are going to go to the clients who need work done. But we're also building a gig economy where you're like, hey, you want DevOps done, right? I can spin up all your infrastructure if you need to, and this is how much I'm charging per hour. So it's everything we do, it's about answering that why. It's about that credibility. And it's not just Web3. We've got to move beyond Web3, and Web3 becomes how we do things, not the way we do things. Web3 becomes a way of reaching a goal, but it helps, not the core thing. Go ahead.
Hey, my name is Thomas. I'm running a company where we applied for several grants and also won them and delivered them. So we run through this process of being audited then at the end.
Yeah.
And first, I really love this process. So of everything runs through GitHub and you see a transparency.
Yeah.
How do you see this changing in the future with, let's say, the changes you approached here?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is when you submit a milestone, right, and if the client's happy, this is what they wanted, all good. If not, that's where a dispute comes in. And then you've got the qualified people within that particular space that can come in and look at what's happening. So with the example you provided, it's the Web3 Foundation who, I don't know if it was the Web3 Foundation, it was, yeah. So they come in and look through what you've delivered and say it matches. But that's a set, right? And it's hard for you to say, okay, what are your qualifications to say that whether what I've done is good enough or not? On our hand, it'll be an on-chain proven track record of, hey, I've delivered X amount of websites if I'm looking at a website. This is my track record. And you should do A, B, and C because this is not good enough because we know what good looks like. It's an industry standard. It's not based on opinions. It's based on facts.